Now, moving on to genes, which are found inside DNA. A gene is defined as, a gene is a short segment of DNA on a chromosome that carries instructions for making a specific protein and determining a particular characteristic of an organism. In simpler terms, genes are small sections of the DNA molecule that contain the instructions needed to produce proteins. These proteins carry out specific functions in the body, and through them, genes determine the traits and characteristics of an organism. Each gene has a unique role, and together, all the genes in an organism form the blueprint for its structure, function, and development. Now, let us talk more about genes. Genes are short segments of DNA found on chromosomes that provide the instructions needed to make proteins. In other words, a gene is a segment of DNA that carries the specific instructions for producing a particular protein or performing a specific function in the body. Genes are responsible for determining inherited traits, such as eye color, blood type, or height. Every organism has many genes, and these genes are arranged in a specific order along the chromosomes. For example, humans have around 20,000 to 25,000 genes distributed across 46 chromosomes. Genes serve as a blueprint for the traits of an organism. They are passed from parents to their offspring, which is why children often share physical and sometimes behavioral characteristics with their parents. To summarize the hierarchy, the cell contains the nucleus, which houses chromosomes. Chromosomes are thread-like structures made of DNA. DNA carries genetic information in the form of genes. Each gene is a specific length of DNA that codes for a particular protein, such as enzymes or structural proteins, that help control the functions of the body. Next, we come to alleles. The key definition of alleles is, alleles are different versions of the same gene that determine variations of a specific trait in an organism. In simpler terms, alleles are alternative forms of a gene. While the gene itself determines a particular characteristic, different alleles of that gene can produce variations in how the characteristic appears. For example, a gene for eye color may have alleles that result in blue, brown, or green eyes. Alleles are what create diversity in traits among individuals of the same species. Now let's look more closely at alleles. Alleles are different versions or forms of the same gene. Each gene can have two or more alleles, and these different alleles can produce variations in the trait that the gene controls. For example, the ABO blood group gene has 3 alleles, IA, IB, and IO. Among these, IA and IB are dominant alleles, while IO is recessive. The combination of alleles that a person inherits from their parents determines their blood type, which can be A, B, AB, or O. Alleles are inherited from both parents, with one allele coming from the mother and one from the father. Differences in alleles are what cause variation among individuals, which is why no two organisms of the same species are exactly alike. These alleles are located on homologous chromosomes, which are pairs of chromosomes that carry the same genes in the same order but may have different alleles. Now let's discuss the importance of alleles. First, alleles are responsible for variation. They explain why individuals of the same species can show differences in traits. For example, one person may have brown eyes while another has blue eyes. Second, alleles determine dominant and recessive traits. Some alleles are dominant, meaning they are expressed even if only one copy is present, while others are recessive and are expressed only if both copies are inherited. Third, alleles contribute to genetic diversity. The presence of multiple alleles within a population increases genetic variation, which helps species adapt to changing environments and survive diseases. Finally, alleles follow predictable inheritance patterns. According to Mendelian inheritance, offspring receive one allele from each parent, which creates consistent patterns in how traits are passed on. These alleles are carried on homologous chromosomes, where each chromosome in the pair has the same genes, though they may carry different alleles. Now let's examine the difference between genes and alleles. A gene is a segment of DNA that codes for a specific trait or protein, whereas an allele is a variant form of a gene that determines a particular version of that trait. In terms of function, a gene determines the trait itself, while an allele produces variations in how that trait appears. Regarding their number, usually there is one gene at a specific location on a chromosome for each trait. However, there can be 2 or more alleles for a gene, with one allele inherited from each parent. In inheritance, genes are passed from parents to offspring. Each parent contributes one allele, and the combination of these alleles determines how the trait is expressed. The effect of a gene is to provide the instructions for a trait, while an allele decides the specific form of that trait, such as whether a person has brown or blue eyes. For example, the eye color gene or the blood group gene represents the gene itself, while brown or blue eye alleles, and A, B, or O blood group alleles, represent the variations of those genes.